The Dragon Lord's Consort, Chapter 5. A Future for a Lord. The day came. It was a beautiful day. The sun was out, the sky was cloudless, the ponies moved about as their day-to-day business was interrupted by outside forces. Bakeries lit up with the smells of fresh goods, shop doors opened and closed with the jingles of arrivals, and the voices of many filled the streets of Ponyville. A group of ponies and dragons stood outside the Crystal Castle outside of town where everything was not so bright and pretty. Spike stood in front of Ember and her guards while Twilight, Starlight, and the rest stood before them. None of them looked to be pleased by the situation, nor any of them were really objecting. Twilight seemed to be the most distraught, but she didn't really beg or cry for Spike to stay. She hadn't turned to her friends either to ask for their help. If anything, it seemed as though she had anticipated for this day to come out for years. When Spike would leave, when he would be amongst his kind once more, and how he may or may not return to Equestria. Despite the reassurances from himself and Ember, she felt as though a part of her was being taken from her. As for the others, they were in a mix of emotions that ran from sadness from one of their own leaving to confusion as to why no pony was stopping him, to worry for when he might ever return. Pinkie was mostly distraught because she didn't even get to give him, like, a goodbye party. The only explanation was time was of the essence, from Ember. Twilight had received a scroll from Celestia. Luna, alongside with Cadence and Shining Armor, wished to say their goodbyes, but having important business to take care of. Spike was not really surprised by this. It was just enough to be intimidated by one royal from each side. To have four on one side seeing one of their own leaving would leave a lasting impression. Still, the lack of his friends questioning his motives and choices really left a sour taste in his mouth. Had they all really anticipated this? Was this something that they knew might happen, or was it something that they just couldn't control? The first time he went on his own was to find out what it meant to be a dragon. They made sure he was safe, but that only met with the end result of him hating what kind he was. When the call for the Gauntlet of Fire was sent, he had no choice but to obey, if he wished to stop whatever it was that made him glow and itch. All of his friends made sure that his choices were sound, and just like he did, on so many occasions that either helped him in the end, or saved the lives of many that stood by him. But the question still remained as to why they were letting him easily go without a fight. Perhaps when he was a decade or two that they knew he would leave to become what he was meant to be. Perhaps he would have returned regardless. Here, however, the assurances seemed vague. Ember and himself said that he would return, but how long would it be till he returned? Weeks? Months? Years? Ember still hasn't responded when he asked, but that was just in between them. Still, he wanted to stick by her and made sure that, as her future consort, he would help her in any way possible. A potential future between the two could end up as either platonic or romantic, but none of them really knew for sure. He wasn't even sure what he was going to do to prove her father or any other dragon. He may not even be sure how to prove it to them, but it didn't really matter, because all that really mattered now was how he could either show to her what kind of dragon he could be for her. Her greatest ally and friend for life, or a lover with a potential mate to secure her future. Either way, he would stick by her. "So, is this really what you want, Spike?" asked Twilight in a somber tone. Her eyes looked saddened beyond belief, and her words tugged at Spike's heart. The more he saw his and her friends, the more it pained him. Yet he knew in his heart of hearts, from what Ember called it, that he would, no, should, stick by her. He had almost had 2 decades with Twilight and maybe a few years with his newfound friends, but to him it felt like a lifetime, if not more, since he was all with them. I do, Twi, I really do. I know that I won't be around, but I know I'll visit the second I get a chance." He paused, looking back at Ember, and gave her a small smile. "I feel like something inside of me wants to help, and help her. Make sure that she's safe." Garble mentally snorted at that cheesy pun. Amethyst mentally sighed with adoration at his words. Ember's scales bristled at his praise, but felt an inner turmoil stir. He turned back towards them. "Look, I know it's not easy, and I feel myself fighting it, but at the same time, I want to go and really learn to be a dragon. Not just a selfish, greedy, mean dragon. If anything, that Ember has spoken to me, it's not that all dragons are bad. Some are good, and others can be amazing. Maybe if I bring that magic of friendship to the Dragonlands, I can teach what you and the girls taught so many other ponies and races throughout the lands." He turned his attention to the others. He walked up to each of them, standing before each one and acknowledging them. "I can teach kindness that can come from the most humble of hearts, or the simplest of gestures, that anyone can change for the better if you're just kind to them." Fluttershy sniffled, but gave a strong smile towards him. He moved towards Rainbow Dash now. "I can show them what it's like to be loyal towards the end, that if you can trust one another, you can always have their backs, and they'll be there when you need them." Rainbow grinned and stuck out her hoof. He bumped his clawed fist to her. Moving to Applejack, maybe when I get there I can show them how honest a dragon can be by showing them that they can be around another dragon and not have their hoard stolen. Honesty can also be where they learn that you don't have to lie to be a better dragon or pony, just be yourself. Applejack removed her hat, placing it on her chest, nodding towards him. He moved to the bouncing Pinkie Pie. He laughed at her little antics. You told me that laughter is the best medicine, and maybe that's what dragons need to be better. I can tell every crazy joke Pinkie has ever told me and maybe get a couple dragons to laugh and spread around. Who knows? Maybe they can start their own comedy clubs. He then moved to Rarity, whom also had tears in her eyes, but held her own smile. And just like I'm doing with Ember, I'll teach them the value of generosity. I'll share my adventures to them, show them how much of a single act of giving can change a dragon's view on life, and how giving a small piece of your heart can make any dragon your greatest friend. Rarity sniffled a bit more before reaching out and bringing him into a hug. Ember watched the exchange, familiar with the concept but also seeing how it held more meaningful to the pony than herself. It was a simple act than the first time he did it to her, but now, just as she got to hold him before and seeing it done again to another, her hearts of hearts flourished with the sense of a gesture most don't really think of. From the corner of her eyes, she could see that Garble wanted to gag and gave a quick harsh glare not to say anything. He saw it and didn't say a single word, but he didn't turn away from the immature acts before him. He did, however, notice that Amethyst seemed to be enjoying all this lovey-dovey pony business, though. Damn, Dragoness was actually affectionate towards the displays before them. Her curious nature for the ponies always made him question her sanity. Turning towards Spike, whom was speaking to the purple one without wings, he talked to her about what she taught him. Ember saw Spike's emotion getting the better of him. He was saying goodbye to his family. His friends. All of them for her. It pained her heart to no end, and the fact that it was her heart and his on the line made it even worse. For when the day comes when the truth is revealed, it might kill her one way or another. The heartbreak that she'll have to endure, and or if he left when he finds out. Being near him for a little while might extend their lives, but not by very much. A flashback of Spike willingly giving her the scepter, she wondered if it would have been easier if he kept it instead of her. Her father would have told him the responsibilities, but what if it was somehow impacting her still? Twilight had enough. She broke down and grabbed Spike with her magic. Spike didn't have time to react before he was brought into an unbreakable hug. The others also broke down and tightened by the hug, including themselves in it. The tears and cries from the ponies continuing to tug at Ember's heart. Amethyst cooed and adored the affection towards the ponies. It took all of Garble's will not to be physically ill. What will be remembered this day for those around? Spike saying goodbye to his family for now? Twilight feeling a piece of her that will be missing for a while? The loss of a friend to a new group of friends? The feeling of a heart breaking as Ember tore a family apart? A stubborn male suddenly feeling a small pity as he had never been embraced by anyone in his life? The sun was bright. The ponies moved on without a care in the world in the warm breeze that came just as the group separated. It's not goodbye forever, he said, wiping away his tears with a giant smile. It's just goodbye for now. Pinkie Pie began bawling loudly. Literal fountains of tears came from her eyes. Fluttershy comforted her as best as possible. Each of his friends gave an accepting nod towards him, knowing fully well what it meant. Twilight turned to him, and her eyes still streaming with tears, but she held a steady smile towards him. A final hug was given. I love you, Spike. I love you so, so much. Sniffling, he hugged back tightly. I love you too, sis, but I promise you, I'll be back. Who knows, maybe her consort. I can send you any new knowledge I learned if they have any books. She laughed at that, hugging tighter before letting go and staring at him. That would be so great, Spike. Just keep in touch every chance you get. She paused and then quickly turned to Starlight, who quickly came over. With a flash of her horn, she conjured a pack which looked to be filled with various items. I know that I want you to send me as much as you can on info, but these are different types of letters. What do you mean? She pulled out a scroll and conjured a second one. Starlight and I created this overnight and hoped that it would come in hoofy. We took a literal page out of Sunset Shimmer's book and modified it so that if you want to keep in touch or anything, you can do it a lot faster than sending me a letter. She wrote a few quick words on the first page, then handed it to Spike. See you soon, it said. Then he turned to her. Go ahead and send a small flame on the letters. He looked at the scroll before giving a small burst of flame on the paper. The words disappeared, and the second scroll instantly filled with the same words. Instant messaging, quoted Twilight. Cool, Spike said enthusiastically. So now we can keep in touch on a day-to-day basis. Twilight gave a nod and Starlight pulled in closer. It does, however, have a limited space, so you won't be able to write for very long. Also, we did enchant the scrolls to last a while, but each breath of your fire will eventually weaken the scroll over time. We gave you a book's worth for those, so it'll last up for a few years if need be. Twilight flinched at the word years, and Spike saw her eyes wilt a little. He gave a small smile to her and brought her in for one last hug. Thanks again, Twi, for everything. I'll be sure to check in with you when I can. With a sniffle, she hugged her baby brother once more, bringing him in close before kissing his forehead. I love you so much, Spike. When you come back, we will all be waiting for you. A single tear fell from Ember's eyes, and she never in life regretted a decision more than now. Tearing a family from one another? Despite the volunteering of one said family, what would he say or do when the truth came forth? Spike slowly pulled away, bringing a bag over his back before making his way to Ember. He missed the tear that she wiped away. He didn't see the quick change in her face from solemn and pain to a small sad smile. He didn't really know the fear that hides within her heart. You'll see them again, she spoke. It was half true, but she knew not when. And when you do, you'll still be you, but maybe better. That was the lie. Spike didn't see through it, though. He gave a hopeful nod before turning back to his friends, and they all had their faces, but he gave them the best smile he could muster. Are you ready? She asked, brought out one of her arms. With a hard nod and a large smile on his face, he spoke. I am. A single flap sent all three dragons into the air, with Spike riding on Ember's back. The ponies below him waved their goodbyes, each crying their little hearts out. Spike waved a tearful goodbye as well as the tower before him grew smaller and smaller. Goodbye, Spike, Twilight said softly. Please come back the same way you left. I'll be here. We'll all be here. The tears that ran down her face never stopped, but she knew that they will. A short poomph was heard as Discord appeared. Oh, Spiky, I am here for your going away party, and He stopped as he appeared right behind the ponies that are viewing the dragon's departure. Their backs toward him, and he saw that the three outlines of the dragons disappearing over the distance. Did I miss it? Darn! Here I was, hoping to get my few lines in here instead of a cameo in the story. Now I'm just the story's Stanley ripoff. Oh well, I guess I'll wait until the story focuses back on the ponies at some point.